Welcome to the golf edition of Hooked on Sport. This is South Australia's summer golf wrap, where we uncover the stories, personalities and moments that define golf across South Australia and beyond. It's time to talk golf with sports commentator Ben Hook and state golf representative Sophie Hilditch.
Good on you, Wallace. Thanks very much. Joined by Sophie Hilditch, all of her expertise and insight. In the aftermath of the Masters, Rory McIlroy, your boy, has done it once again. Soph, back-to-back, fourth time in history. Someone's gone back-to-back, and I imagine this one, of all of them, is a little bit more special to you than most.
Oh, it was so special to me, Hookie. I was so thrilled when I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning and Rory wasn't leading, but he was definitely in the hunt. And I know when Rory's in the hunt, you've got to watch out. He's not very good at holding a lead, but he is very good at chasing down a lead, as we witnessed throughout this entire tournament. But my Rory fan club hat was on. I was so excited. I was so thrilled to see my boy get it over the line, and I called it on Wednesday night.
We are going to talk all things Masters very shortly, but before we do, how about you give me Sophie's star for the week?
Well, I feel a bit rude doing this, but I'm actually going the Victorian golfer Amelia Harris, who's just gone and won the Australian Junior Masters. She stormed home after being 4 shots back to have an incredible win. And the last winner of this event was the one and only Regan Denton, who we spoke to earlier last week when she came T4 at the Arnwar and played Augusta National. So I thought it was fitting to have someone who's now also won a similar event to Regan, and I think it's an incredible achievement. She's now going off and playing at the Junior Interstate Series, which is at Moona Links, and we've got quite a few South Australian juniors competing against the best juniors in the country.
I have some scores from that, Soph, if you're interested. It's been a toughish day for South Australia today in the opening 2 rounds of the Interstate Series. We went down pretty badly to New Zealand, 6.5 to 1.5. So this is 4 women, 4 men. Our women got swept. Jackson Leonard had a win. Angus Dungy had a half. And then we halved our clash with Tasmania in the afternoon. Jackson Leonard had another win. Alan Zinn a victory. Billy White a win. And it was Malachy Marshall who had the half. Adele Wang a half for the women, and the other 3 went down. So yeah, tough start for the girls. Boys, okay. New Zealand look really strong, and Tasmania maybe look a little bit better than what they've traditionally been as well. But there's some hot fields in there. So we take on Victoria and Queensland tomorrow. It is all ahead of us. So for Ben's best this week, I'm going to tell you about the Masters winner. And his name is Trent Kramer, because he has won the Kooyonga's Masters Monday day with a net score of 68 to win the trophy at Cooey. I've seen this photo of Trent. My word, he looks like someone who would have played in the Masters in about the mid-80s. He's got the checkered pants and the hot pink shirt, so he was all dressed appropriately. So with a net 68 taking out Kooyonga's Masters Monday, just wanted to give a little congratulations to, the grassroots golfers that are close to my heart. Soph, Trent Kramer, Kooyonga Golf Club, takes out Masters Monday. A few clubs do that, which is a great idea. Have a breakfast, put the TV coverage on, and then go out to play around, I guess, probably a shotgun start beginning about 9 o'clock or something like that. And Trent Kramer's done it for Cooey. So there you go. Soph, the Masters review. Let's get into it. I don't know where you want to start. I think we probably obviously start with the winner. I've just got to say how well they did setting up the course over the week. It looked on Thursday like things were potentially going to get away from them a little bit. They clearly poured some water into it on the Friday. That allowed them to be a little bit more liberal again on the Saturday and the Sunday. We got some wind today, which added to the degree of difficulty of the course and probably took out the option of someone coming from a long way back and shooting a 64 or a 65 or something like that. I think 68 was probably the low score of the day from all of those who were in and amongst it. Tyrrell Hatton 66, but bit of a backdoor top 5 for him. But certainly windy conditions added to the challenge. But how did Rory win it?
I think, I don't don't know how he won it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but his driving was off all tournament. At one stage, I think through 36 holes, he was actually ranked 90th for driving accuracy out of a field of 91 players. So obviously not a great stat for Rory, and particularly when driver is normally his strongest asset and really the powerhouse that he is, can just reach every single par 5 into. He can then have wedges or 9 irons into some of these greens, whilst other players are having 8 irons or 7 irons. But Rory, unusual for him, it was actually his short game, and he spoke about it. He had been going to Augusta, having day trips, Ben, to Augusta, and practicing all around those greens and making sure he was getting used to the pace, getting used to the lines, and getting used to using some of those slopes. And I think it really paid off. He only had about 24 putts in that final round, and it made the difference. But I also think what won it for Rory is really that mental side. It was clear in past years before the 20 and 25 win, when he completed that Grand Slam, that Rory was tense. And he wanted this so bad, and that internal pressure that he was putting on himself just meant he couldn't execute the shots. He was making rogue decisions, like we saw in 2025 on the 13th hole. Rory laying up when he could clearly make the green, and Rory is not known for laying up. He is known for being aggressive, going at pins, and he had to question himself even in 2025. But I found that in this year, he went for things when he thought he should be going for them, and he only laid up when he was, the driver was in the trees and there was no other choice but to lay up. So for me, it was the mental side of his game that really won it for Rory.
I think last year Rory really didn't deal with the pressure at all and kind of fell in, played a terrible 18th hole, had to go back through a playoff and hit that incredible second shot to about 3 feet, but I just don't see he was going to make a putt any longer than that. I just thought what won him the tournament this time around was what he did in the back nine when he was clearly nervous. But he made birdies on 12 and 13, an incredible tee shot on 12 to hit it where he did. I mean, no one hits it there. That was just a remarkable shot. Played a beautiful chip from being over behind the green on 13 and then makes the putt. But then 15, 16, 17, par, and they'll look unremarkable on the scorecard, but he got himself way out of position on the par 5, which is a hole that he has routinely birdied. He airmailed the green on 16 and did an incredible job to get that up and down. As he did on 17, he was in the fairway, missed that green right, which you really can't afford to do there, but hit an exquisite chip and made, a 3-4 foot putt for par, and that just gave him the wiggle room to, blow it 100 miles right as he did on 18T and still manage to squirrel away a fairly ugly bogey, if you like, but that was enough. I just feel like last year, he made so many mistakes when he had that big lead, and this is where he couldn't afford those mistakes and gave himself that little bit of wiggle room at the end. So what does it mean for his legacy? He's now, at 6 majors, I think it is it? And a back-to-back Masters winner, only the 4th in history, and their big names, Tiger, Jack, Nick Faldo. What does it say about your boy's legacy now?
Well, I think my boy's legacy is just growing and growing. I think you could say, and you were right, the 2025 Masters win was shaky. I had to go to a playoff. It was a really scrappy bogey on that 18th hole as well. And this year, you're right, it was a pretty wild bogey that he made on 18, and actually it was quite stressful for me watching at home. It was about a 60-second lag when he blasted his shot outright. And then I could see him having a talk to his caddy, his long-term friend, Harry Diamond, about what he should be doing and what the pine needles, how are they reacting. And I'm sitting there thinking, Rory, you know exactly how pine needles react. You don't need confirmation. And then he hit his second shot, and I don't think they knew where it went because there was about a 60-second lag before we realised it went in the bunker. Yeah. And I was thinking, oh my God, where has he put this? Is this anywhere even near the green? But
yeah, it was sickening, wasn't it? It could have been anywhere, and then suddenly double bogeys in play.
Yeah.
And we're off to another playoff.
And I thought we could be heading straight towards a playoff. So I think for Rory's legacy, it's kind of proven that, it's kind of hard, Ben, because competing the Grand Slam is such a big deal, and that's a legacy in itself. But this kind of solidifies him as one of the world's best that we've ever seen. His name can be put up there around the Tiger Woods and the Jack Nicholson, which you just can't. And he is changing the game just like they were. He is revolutionizing the game, and there's amateurs out there that are looking at Rory McIlroy and wanting to do what he did, completing the Grand Slam in their era. It's just the new modern golfer, and he's competing against those like Scotty Scheffler as well, who's also paving a way for future amateurs. So I think Rory's really stamping his ground as one of the best golfers that we've ever seen and will ever see. And that's what I think the sixth major is. I also think it proves that Rory's not done, and there are more majors in his future.
I don't quite have him in the Jack Tiger category. I've certainly got him in that next rung now. I think he's Scotty Scheffler. I think he's Phil Mickelson, Gary Player, Arnold Palmer. I think he's just in that next tier. I think he's elevated himself into that group. He probably wasn't there, 13 months ago, but with what he's done back-to-back Masters now, I've certainly got him in there pretty comfortably. So let's go through the contenders and those who finished high up on the leaderboard without getting it done. And I'm just interested if you feel like they would have slept well or slept poorly after completing their 72nd hole. Let's start with Scotty Scheffler, who was 12 shots back of the lead at the end of the day Friday and gets to within one at the end of the tournament. Would he be satisfied with that or a little disappointed?
Well, he didn't birdie a single back nine par five, so I think he's going to be completely devastated with that effort. That is clearly not good enough. If you're not birdieing the par fives, particularly on the back nines on moving day Saturday and the final day of Sunday, you're just not going to get majors. And the other thing I want to say is I've seen Scotty Scheffler complaining about the Friday watering of the greens, and it wasn't as peppery as the Thursday afternoon. And I never like to see players complaining. And I think that's, you know what, it could be true. And it looks like it was true, to be honest, but I still don't think you should be complaining. You play a sport with outdoor elements. Greenies have to do what they have to do. If they were going to keep those greens like that, Saturday and Sunday were almost going to be unplayable.
Yep.
And I do not like seeing players complaining about those kind of conditions and saying that's why they weren't in contention or didn't get the job done. I personally think it's a little bit mentally weak, and I was unimpressed.
Excellent points. Cannot argue with that. I mean, his demand that a sport that is inherently unfair, and you get bad breaks and good breaks all the time, and his demand, his expectation that it is fair, I think is completely unreasonable. I'm 100% on your side there. I've got to say, though, for him to get himself back into that tournament and be a stroke away from getting into a playoff is an incredible performance. He loomed ominously at the start of the day today. He birdied 1 and 3. You made a really good point. He made 11 straight pars through to the 14th, then made an outrageous birdie on 15. But did he birdie 14? I think he birdied 14 and 15. And all of a sudden, he's 4 under without having done anything at all. And he parred home. So, I mean, it's a great round of 68, and it was an excellent round on Saturday as well. One short, but yeah, he should be very proud of what he did, where he came from. What was he, 2 under on day 1, 2 over on day 2. It's an incredible fight back. So, no, he should be very pleased. What about Justin Rose?
Oh, I think he's going to have nightmares after this. I got to say, after day 2 of this Masters 2026, I had to check myself. It felt like we were watching 2025 Masters all over again with P. Reid and Justin Rose and Rory McIlroy all up the top fighting for it, and some really similar names. But Justin Rose, halfway through this round, I thought he was going to do it. And part of me, even though it was against my boy Rory McIlroy, kind of wanted Justin Rose to do it after last year and after how he took that loss, and he really copped it on the chin and was, faced media and said, he just witnessed history, and as much as it's devastating for him, he was so thrilled to be part of that history, and I really felt like he needed the win. But I've got to say, for me, you talk about Rory's chip on 13 off the back of that green, and he holds the putt for birdie, and after having the nightmares that he had in 2025 on that 13th hole and, choosing to lay up and then pushing that chip shot into the wind and hitting an absolute shocker, Justin Rose hit one of the most incredible approach shots. He had an eagle putt from about 25 feet, and he's 3-putted. And for me, that's where this tournament is lost for Justin Rose. It's hard to come back from that, particularly when you have someone behind you birdieing 12 and you know that they've got 2 par 5s coming up and they've got the powerhouse of the driver that Rory does. for me, that's where it lost. And you could just tell Justin Rose, the wind just went, right out of his sails, and he had nothing left. And he then made some sloppy bogeys coming in, and that one stung. And I think Justin Rose is going to look back at this and think, I lost this Masters. Rory didn't win it from me.
Yeah, I felt like he was so close last year, and he seems further away than ever. And the older you get, you just don't make those incredible putts. The 3-putt 13 was such an unforced error, as you said, having put it to within 20 feet, and then the duff chip on 12 was just something you can't do at that level of golf. You've got to be able to give yourself half a chance of a putt for par there. So yeah, I think you'll be disappointed. What about Cam Young?
Cam Young is an interesting choice. Part of me feels like he's going to be disappointed because obviously he didn't get the job done. But the other part of me, I don't know, it felt like he could never get it going today, and he didn't have his best stuff, and he still managed to hold in a little bit. I think he sleeps well. It's a good result for a Masters from Cam Young, and I think he's a player to watch out in the future. He showed that he deserves to be there. I think he's going to get a major, which I keep saying, and there's so many good players, it's kind of hard to keep giving them all out majors, but I think Cam Young sleeps well, personally. I think he gave it a crack. He didn't have his best stuff on Sunday, yet still managed to hold up in there and still managed to, did he finish T3 in the end?
T3 at 10 under, but the only one of that lead group to finish over par for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he'll be a little bit disappointed with that. 2-stroke lead at the turn, and then really just was somewhere between average and poor on the back nine. I think it's a very, very difficult tournament to lead heading into the back nine. It almost suited Rory to be a couple of strokes back as they started to head towards the 10th hole. It must have been really difficult for him to make pars on 12 and 13 when Rory makes both of those birdies. That would have been extra painful for him to watch what Rory did while he was just through no real fault of his own, but just going backwards. Made a really weak putt on 15. And I just feel like he spent a lot of the tournament getting away with some pretty good breaks, hit it into trees a lot and got bounced back out onto the fairway. And he sort of came unstuck on 9 with that poor drive and then put it in the divot and made the bogey on 9. And that was, I think, just where things started to tilt for him. So I don't know. I think it's a great result for him because he hasn't won a major yet, and it's another incredible top 5. And he's I think it's his 3rd or 4th now. But I think he'll probably sleep a bit. I reckon he'll struggle to sleep on the strength of what he did. I reckon that he'll be very disappointed with the way that last 10 or so holes went. Morikawa, 9 under, completely unfit to be out there. I think he should be very proud of his week.
I completely agree. Morikawa coming back from that back injury, you could tell he was struggling a little bit out there, and he was very open about that with the press. His mental side was struggling to acknowledge that his back was better and he could start swinging through the ball. And for someone who relies on their iron game and their approach play, when you don't have the confidence in your swing, that must be incredibly difficult. So for me, Colin Morikawa, 9 under, 4 under final round, T7. I think he could be back, and he hasn't been around for a very long time. So I'm excited to see Morikawa at the top of that leaderboard, particularly at a course that you need strength in your putter, and we can all know that Morikawa's strength is not his putter, particularly that reroute that is so ugly and so unbearable to watch.
What about Tyrrell Hatton? 66, tied for the low round of the day, gets it in as T3, but never was really a threat.
Yeah, he's a backdoor top 12 for me, but this definitely gets him back to the Masters, which he should be excited about as a live player. All 12 and ties get an invite back for the next year, so that's exciting for Tyrrell. But for me, I never really saw him, so it was completely backdoor, top 12 finish. I think it's interesting, though. Tyrrell Hatton is one of those live players that has managed to stick around, stick to his game, keep it up a little bit, and is still contending in a lot of these majors despite having been played in live and not competing against the world's best.
He does handle difficult setups reasonably well, despite the fact that he will blow up at them from time to time. We'll talk a little bit more about the live players shortly. Just to wrap it up, Russell Henley, another guy who I think should be pretty proud. not necessarily renowned as a major star. He's not long off the tee, and Augusta National uniquely allows everyone a chance to win. He laid up on a lot of par fives, but I think he should be pretty pleased with how he went. What did you make of Russell Henley?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he played his own game, kept it pretty steady, didn't get scared. You know, like you said, he's not the longest hitter out there, but Augusta National is not necessarily for the long hitters. There's perfect spots for layups, and there's sections in those greens and bowls in those greens that you can use to your advantage if you're coming in with a lower lofted club like a 7-iron or a 6-iron, which I expect is what Henley was doing. The other one I wanted to mention, though, is Max Homer.
Yeah.
He had a T9 finish and final round of 5 under. We have not been seeing Max Homer at all on leaderboards, and he's gone MIA for the past 2 years after being a bit of a golden boy, playing around with, you know, the Jordan Spieths of this world and the Justin Thomases, and being a bit of the boys' boy, and we haven't seen him. And I was stoked to see a Max Homer at the top of the leaderboard. I thought he showed so much potential a few years ago. And I think this might mean he might be someone to look out for in 2026. He went for a really bad patch in 2025. He was missing cuts. He was not performing well. He almost had the shanks. It was just incredibly upsetting to see. But he looks like he's been putting some hard work in. He's now a father of 2. And I think Max Homer is one to watch out for.
Yeah, his social media profile got bigger than his golf game for a
Yep.
period there. So it's nice that there's a little bit of equilibrium. Pleased you brought him up. Let's talk about the Australians. First of all, Jason Day.
Well, 0 birdies in his final round, 3 over, one of the worst scores out there. It was really disappointing. Jason Day was all over the leaderboard, all with his bird pants and bird tops and his outrageous outfits that everyone is mocking. And to be honest, he deserves to be mocked.
Knits. You're not a polo knit fan, Soph?
No, not a polo knit fan, but you know what?
The all cream, the cream pants with the cream polo knit.
Absolutely not. And I said it at the preview for the Masters that if you can look that stupid, you got to hope that your golf is good. And his golf was good for 3 rounds of this tournament, but this final round was upsetting. He finished T12, but it's hard to look at that and say that was a good Masters for him. He's always kind of around the mark in Masters. Augusta really suits his game, and I have always hoped that Jason Day would finally get one over the line. And then this round 4 just showed me that he didn't quite have the grit and the guts, and no birdies and just a straight 11 pars at the end. It was just a bit disheartening to see.
Yeah, just lacks a bit of stamina maybe, to really compete in those major events over 72 holes. Cameron Smith.
I mean, what a disappointment was that. 7 over, didn't make the cut. I think the live move for Cam is he's one of those players that I really feel like has suffered the most from live. He won an Open at St. Andrews and basically has never come back. For someone who this course should completely suit them, his short game is unbelievable, but it almost feels like Cam is more interested in the team aspect of live and potentially maybe growing the game within Australia and promoting golf around Australia, and more interested in that social media presence. And it just doesn't really look like he's putting the work into his game. And I think we might be seeing the worst of Cam Smith and maybe some different priorities for the man.
Royal Melbourne and the Australian Open sort of looks like the outlier now. He was fantastic that week and probably went against the grain of how he'd been playing, but it just seems like that was the one unexpected result against what's become a bit of a habit for Cam. 6 straight miscuts in majors. His exemption runs out next year, so time is running out because he's ranked outside the top 200. So unless he's going to start qualifying for events, he needs to find a way to get back into tournaments, and he needs to do that with T12s at the Masters, as you said, or T15 at the PGA Championship. That's what gets you a start the next year, and it would be a tremendous shame if we only saw Cam on the LIV Tour and not in majors at all. Hey, can I just make a point as well? No media from Cam Smith, refused to do media. Same for Jordan Spieth, same for Bob McIntyre. Can I just compare that to Asterisk Tally, who made an 8 on the par 3, 12th 7, I think it was, I beg your pardon, and took every media question at the end of what must have been the most devastating experience for a teenage girl. And here we are, have these grown adult men who can't front up and do media after a bit of a disappointing day. My goodness, they are so fragile emotionally, aren't they? I think it's really poor, and it's unfortunate that these sorts of events are pretty much unregulated. There's no expectation. Imagine an AFL coach. So what's a good example? Imagine if Michael Voss, after yet another Carlton loss, just said, I'm not doing media today, and we all just shrugged our shoulders and accept it. We wouldn't accept it in AFL football, and it's frustrating that we're obliged to accept it in golf because these guys just refuse to do it. Yeah, so Cameron Smith, not sure if we'll ever see him in the hunt again. By that I mean late Sunday and within a shot of the lead. It just looks like it's absolutely beyond him at the moment. I don't think it's through lack of trying. I think there are some mitigating factors with Liv, but at the same time, he is just not playing well. And it's something that he's going to have to fix very quickly. Otherwise, it'll all go past him in a hurry. Adam Scott.
Adam Scott's a tough one for me. He's obviously heading towards, you'd argue, the end of his career. What is he? Early to mid 40s, but then it's hard.
45.
Mid 40s. It's hard though, because then you look at what he was doing in 2025 and he was competing at US Opens and up there with some of the best. So it's hard to say that, he's heading towards the end of the career when he's clearly still competing. I mean, he was hitting his driver so well at the Masters, but he only hit 65% of the greens in reg and only made 45% sand saves, and it was a bit iffy with the putter, and it wasn't looking that great. But putting isn't anything to do with older age, personally. I mean, maybe mental, but I'd only think that your mental strength is probably going to improve with experience and age, and that's something that you could easily fix. In terms of ball striking and distance off the tee, he's still up there with some of the best. So I think this is a bit of a disappointing tournament for Adam Scott. It was 2 under T24 and it was shooting, I think, 2 under today as well. So he wasn't ever really in the tournament. You never really saw him at the top of the leaderboard. But I feel like we haven't seen the last of Adam Scott, and this might be a bit of an abnormality amongst his tournaments for the rest of the year.
Solid performance, but 0 rounds in the 60s. That's not going to get it done at Augusta and the way the course is set up. And again, one of those guys that you just, at 45, you wonder if he'll be contending a whole lot more at majors. We'll obviously see him at the Masters for as long as he wants to play because he has that lifetime exemption as a winner in 2013. But yeah, I think we'll see flashes of him, but whether we see him regularly right at the pointy end of leaderboards, I'm worried about. Let's wrap it up with Minwoo Lee.
Ball speed imposter. Ben, we called it as well in the Masters preview. I thought maybe with this mini driver we might be seeing something, but look, he just wasn't good enough. He hit 42% of greens in reg, way below the field average, 11 over, miscut. I think Minwoo Lee needs to go home and do some serious work, and that's not getting his driver going as far and fast as possible, and it's definitely not, that social media account that he's often on. It's around the greens. It's getting better. He calls himself what? Mr. Chipninsky or something like that?
Dr. Chipinski.
Yes.
And then he's been dubbed also the short game chef.
Yep, and that's the one. And I got to say, the short game chef was not on. He was not cooking at all, and it was pretty disappointing. And this isn't the first Masters that this has happened. This is a recurring theme. And if Minwoo Lee wants to get a Masters win, or albeit even a major win, he's going to need to work on his short game, particularly around those firmer greens, which we often see at the majors.
Minwoo was 2 under through 14 holes on day one and finished 11 over. That's 2 strokes behind one of his playing partners, Fred Couples, who won this tournament back in 1992. It's about, 8 years before Minwoo was born. His game is not majors resilient right now. It may become that one day, but it isn't there at the moment. And you think about the last 2 Australian Opens, which were played at Kingston Heath and Royal Melbourne, 2 courses where you cannot afford to get yourself out of position and just hit it all over the ballpark. He finished 49th and 47th. And they aren't particularly strong fields, Australian Opens. So for someone of his supposed quality to be that far out of it in these types of courses where your ball striking needs to be precise and you can't get yourself out of position, that's a concern. I think he's become a fine player in pillow fights, and that is not a compliment. And I would say so. For Australian top end of Australian men's professional golf is in a bit of a funk at the moment. I mean, you think about the guys that have played in these majors. Smith's gone a mile backwards. Scott's at the end of his career. Jason Day's not far behind him, and Minwoo Lee, well, as we've discussed, just isn't cutting it when the pressure and when the challenges are the most significant. And I just don't know that I know where our next major winner's coming from.
Yeah, it's a fair call, Ben. I've been a little bit worried about the men's professional golf for Australia for a little bit here, particularly with, Elvis Smiley heading over to LIV, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does next outside of LIV and whether or not he can compete at some of those PGA Tour events like the majors, where really, for me, that's where the golf really matters. It's lifting that trophy. It's not winning a LIV tournament in South Africa. And should we turn to the LIV players now that we've got onto the LIV conversation?
Well, let's do it. What did you make of the collective LIV performance? I don't know it's fair to necessarily rate them collectively because they're all individuals, but they would have to say, I know they'll hang their hat on Tyrrell Hatton, of course, but they would have to say it was extraordinarily disappointing as a week for the LIV group.
Oh, it was completely disappointing. And some of the behaviour from some of the LIV players was pretty appalling. I don't know if you managed to see Sergio Garcia, who finished dead last, but he was breaking his driver on, Masters tee blocks and making divots, massive divots with his driver in the middle of the tee block. And it's just a bit unbecoming for someone playing in a Masters tournament. And that was disappointing to see. And I know you can't lump all the LIV players together, just because they're all playing on the same tour doesn't mean that we should be collectively talking about them, but it's pretty hard not to when a lot of the LIV players played appallingly. And it was clear that, for me, LIV tournaments are played on soft greens. They want, low numbers. They want lots of birdies. They want lots of eagles. And when they come and play a course set up like Augusta was, which was firm and fast, they can't cop it. And it was pretty disappointing. I feel sorry for the Rahms and the DeChambos because I feel like they want to come back and they're kind of locked into these contracts. And there's only so much you can do when you're playing your competitive golf on softer greens and birdie fests, and you're not getting the tournament practice on playing on the caliber of the courses like Augusta National.
Yeah, I go back to that tournament in South Africa where Bryson DeChambeau and Paul Casey were brought to tears by the adulation of the South African fans, as if that this was the absolute pinnacle of golf. And really, it's done all of their games a complete disservice. And it's not the winning scores of 22, 23, 24 under, but it's something we've identified, Soph. Have a look at where last place is finishing. Last place is often finishing even or one over. And how can you finish last in a tournament and therefore make a series of pretty elementary mistakes, but still be even par with the card? And that's my greatest frustration with the LIV setups, is that no one's learning to be punished for making errors. They're getting an opportunity to get it up and down, no matter really where they hit it. And it is just not helping these guys' games. Now, LIV might say, tough, we pay you. We want you to play bruise-free golf, play backstop golf. So learn to live with it. And I don't know that I've got too much sympathy for the Rahms and the Brysons. And we've spoken about it here. They've hardly been vocal about the setups are too easy. They're quite happy to sidle up and play them and shoot 23, 24 under. And unfortunately, it's coming back to bite them on the other side when they turn up and play at these events. And they just can't deal with the fact that small misses become big problems in big tournaments.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So just one final word on Rory McIlroy and the Masters in general. You've obviously taken in all 4 days, the par 3 contest. Another exceptional tournament. They continue to get so much right.
Oh, they get so much right at Augusta National. The Masters is an amazing tournament. The viewing at home on a TV is incredible. You see so much golf. It's live action. You're seeing all these different shots. They're not just showing the leaders. They're showing the people who are on hot runs. They're showing amateurs. I love everything about this tournament. I did think on Friday when Rory had that 6-shot lead, I thought, oh no, there might be someone running away with it. And then I remembered I'm watching Rory McIlroy, and absolutely not. That's why I support the boy. I'm going to see some missed 2-foot putts or 3 putts from 4 feet, and people are going to play catch up in the caliber of their field. Of course, there was going to be people playing catch up and hunting him down, and that's exactly what we got, and that's what makes the Masters incredible. And I always get tears in my eyes. Whoever wins, it doesn't matter who wins. Obviously, there were more tears probably for me today because it was Rory McIlroy, but seeing them come off that 18th hole, get the hugs from their family and their friends, and realize what they've just achieved, and you can just see that this means the world to them. And being able to wear that green jacket is just such an accomplishment, and it always makes me teary at the end, Ben.
Perfect little wrap up, Soph. Thank you so much. That is our Masters wrap. We begin our Golf SA Pennant review right after this. Soph, the Sanderson Cup resumed at the Grange Golf Club. Took it on the Live golf course, the replica course that has been traditionally played by the professionals on the Live circuit over the last 4 years. Let's begin with Glenelg Kooyonga, a massive win for the Tigers, who have, by my maths, confirmed their spot in the preliminary final. They got it done 3-2. Your first thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's what I thought it might be, a very close contest. Some of those games, though, were, big wins and big losses, 5-3s and 5-4s, but I knew it was going to be close, and that's exactly what happened. But Glenelg, you're right, by my maths as well, they've managed to get themselves a final start for that 2v3 position in the semi-final. It's an incredible achievement after a very slow start to the season. I think they'll be very proud. I'm sure that the pizzas at the Glenelg Golf Club and a few of the drinks were going down very nicely. But look, it's an interesting result. Like I said, there was only really one close game that went to Maya from Glenelg, where she won 2 up against Scarlett Parker, but everything else seemed to really just go one way or the other, which is particularly interesting, and very interesting when you're about to go play Kooyonga Golf Club next week.
I like the way you just call her Maya. You're not prepared to take on her surname in case you get it wrong. Chuckapek, I think. I'm not exactly sure what it is either, but in very good form. Important win for Glenelg on the weekend. Sarah Crocker, what a menace she is becoming at this level, isn't she? It's another massive win for her.
Yeah, she's only ever had massive wins. That seems to be Sarah Crocker's job at the moment, and she's really anchoring in that Glenelg team, and she's obviously getting the job done quick and early so that they know that they've got the win on the board.
Hey, for Glenelg, interesting one. Beck Hardy has defeated Louise Glennon in Pike Cup yesterday. She's got to be a thought for Glenelg in a prelim, doesn't she? Jill Hodge, who we love, but is 0-4. I wonder if Beck Hardy comes back into that team after beating Glennon in the Pike Cup.
It's an interesting comment, but I've got a feeling that Zoe might have mentioned in the preview that Beck Hardy might potentially be out for finals. So it's an interesting point of view, but I'm not sure if she's around.
Hey, unsubstantiated rumour. Actually, I'll stick with unsubstantiated rumour. My understanding is that play was stopped in the Pike Cup yesterday while there was concerns over eligibility of Caitlin Roberts and Louise Glennon, who both played in the Pike Cup. There was a little asterisk alongside that because, of course, Grange had the bye in the Sanderson Cup, and I think someone was trying to do the maths on would there have been 5 players actually fronting up for a Sanderson Cup match if both of them were around in the Pike Cup. Apparently they were both approved to play, but I thought that was interesting that potentially there was a stoppage in play while they worked out whether they were both eligible to front up. So nothing like everyone getting frustrated over a bit of club golf, Soph.
Yeah, nothing like it. I did hear about this rumour floating around as well, and I won't comment, Ben. Don't want to get myself in trouble.
No, well, you don't need to. I will say one thing about this. People take Pike Cup and Bonner Cup way too seriously. And that is probably a comment that I might just expand on for another time. But it's kind of outrageous how people treat it as important as it is. I mean, there is no other sport that takes their reserves as seriously as golf does. When you compare that, Sanderson Cup and Simpson Cup isn't necessarily the core business of every golf club either. I will expand on that. I've got some theories on how we can solve a few of the problems, I think, with the way that Tier 1s just pull so many of the top players, but it's probably a discussion for another time. Let's turn our attention to your massive win over Blackwood. You got it done 5-0. It's an incredible result, Soph. I thought you were going to win, but this was emphatic. You must have been really pleased that you could sweep Blackwood with a couple of new inclusions into the team.
Yeah, it was a huge win, very exciting for our team. But, our team, we don't really focus on our wins from the previous week. We're more focused on our next game. But no, it was definitely a huge win. The girls were extremely proud of themselves. Every game was going our way for the majority of the match, which was incredible. We obviously had Reagan Denton back, which was exciting, and lots of hugs and lots of conversations were had about her recent T4 at the Anwar. But yes, you're right. We had some recent inclusions, but down the bottom of the order with Angela Plumridge coming in for her first ever Sanderson game and getting the job done over Zoe Bennett 6 and 5. And she actually had Caitlin Pearce on the bag, which was incredible. She's a professional golfer, as we all know, but she's an old Royal Adelaide Pennant member, and she came back and helped out Angela, and seems like she was a huge help, but also seems like Angela played incredible golf and was incredible out there. I know she had a few nerves, so it was good to see her get that win.
I've got to say, I'm disappointed for Blackwood. I'm not disappointed with Blackwood, but they've had a couple of pretty sizable losses. They came in with some high expectations, some high hopes that maybe they could threaten the Tier 1s and pinch one of the final spots, but it certainly hasn't materialised. And I just hope that they can stick with it. They need to be nurtured a little bit. Again, it probably reflects back to the discussion I would have on Pike and Bonner Cup being taken too seriously. They brought in Zoe Bennett. Now, she comes in from A4 Golf. Every other team has a Pike Cup pool of players to fall back on. Zoe Bennett's coming from A4. That is not preparation for Sanderson Cup. That makes it really difficult, I think. So, look, I just hope Hannah Custance and Ebony Riordan stick with it, and that they do get some reward for effort. They just need a little bit of nourishment for all of the effort they're putting in. But yeah, sure. Hey, Royal Adelaide, absolute title threat with Reagan back, you in form, and in-form Laura Birchmore. That's going to be three great matchups when you take on Kooyonga next week. Their top three versus your top three will be absolutely fascinating. That is all ahead of us though, Soph, and that'll be part of our preview show, so we might get to that then. Let's jump across to the Simpson Cup. Starts with a fairly straightforward result because the Grange, for the second week running, have blown away an opponent 7-0. Last week it was Tea Tree Gully. This week it was Mount Osmond. Ironically enough, they've got Thaxted Park next week, who are winless and bottom, so it could be three in a row, who knows. But this was emphatic and an ominous warning sign to the rest of the competition, Soph.
100%. It was a clear win to Grange. It's always hard playing a home club, so I feel a bit sorry for Mount Osmond. It was a tough task, particularly playing the live course. I'm sure these Grange players have played it multiple times, but for a lot of us, it was the first time we'd ever experienced it. And I know we've played the holes before, but we've never played it in that kind of order, and it did throw you off a little bit. But wow, Grange, 7-0 for second time in a row, obviously against Tea Tree Gully. Last round at Kooyonga Golf Club was incredibly impressive. This one is also impressive, not quite as equally as impressive because it was their home course, but it's really stamped them as the favourites to take out the premiership.
I can't see anyone chase them down from here, Soph. They're too good. They run too deep. There was no Alan Zinn. There was no Jackson Badowski. Bugsy, we'll call him. It's like Juckapek. We'll just, just either give them a surname or not. They still win 7-0. So, almost give them the trophy now, I reckon. They're a class above the rest of the field. Great year from Mount Osmond. You identified it. No shame with what happened on Sunday. They keep their spot for 2027 and they thoroughly deserve it. Glenelg have been big winners once again, Soph, and they remain in the conversation to defend the title that they won last year. They beat Thaxted 6.5 to a half. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, it's kind of what we expected, unfortunately, from the Thaxted boys. It does feel a bit disheartening at the end of the season when you kind of already know that you're the ones, unfortunately, that are going to be relegated at the end because they're facing Grange in their final round, and that's going to be a tough order to get the job done over them. And even then, if they could get the 2 wins in these last 2 rounds of matches in Mount Osmond, they weren't going to get it over the line. So I do feel for Thaxted in this match, because I feel like it is hard to go, let's just keep on going when you know you're about to be relegated, and that's a tough task. But for the Glenelg boys, it was a very solid win. Again, like the Bays women, they didn't have a great start to the season, but they're starting to show their teeth a bit at the end of the season and show why they were the premiership winners in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely right. They are still very much in with a chance. This is some fool's gold, though, isn't it? I mean, it almost is meaningless. I mean, 65-year-old Daryl Scott fronted up for Thaxted Park on the weekend. So this was a severely depleted team who are out of steam, knew that they were heading back to A2 next year. Isaac Tierney, don't know anything about him, and I'm sure he's got a big future. But look, he lost the first 9 holes straight, Soph, and then had a half on 10 to go down 9 and 8. I mean, Will Starkey's a good player. That was his opponent, but that's out of kilter with Will Starkey's season. And Isaac Tierney, look, great experience maybe, but probably just not quite ready for this level yet. So Glenelg get a bit of a soft win here. Doesn't mean they can't beat Royal next weekend, but that's a different test ahead for them. Look, the big positives for Glenelg, they've got 3 absolute bankers going right now. Michael Munn, Nick Wake, and Cade Bryant. And Jackson Leonard, who looks like he's in great form at the Junior Interstate Series for South Australia, will come back next week. So there's a pretty big first 4 for the Bays when they take on Royal Adelaide. Nick Wake, what an incredible year he's had. I think that's 5 straight wins for him. I think it's his best ever performance in Simpson Cup in one season. I'm going to nominate him for Senior Australian of the Year, so if he's been that good. Retired, spending a lot of time on the golf course, and it's paying absolute dividends. Another great win for him. So, yeah, well done to Glenelg. They're still in 5th, but it's very simple for them. If they beat Royal Adelaide next weekend, they'll be in and defending their title in a semi-final the week after. Tea Tree Gully and the Vines played out a half, which is probably a pretty good result for both of them. The Vines stay alive. Tea Tree Gully sit in second position, and they're going to be a real threat when the semi-final is at the Vines. So what did you make of this one?
Well, we thought it was going to be close and it was going to be a match to watch out for. I've got a feeling these last 2 matches might have been why it was particularly a little bit slow out at Grange for the women, and we were waiting on tee blocks, and I think it was just under 3 hours for 9 holes. And
just a little drive-by there from
just a
the
little
women.
drive-by.
Flipping the men.
Halved matches might have been a bit of an issue. I saw them on 18 as I was standing on the 10th tee. But no, I think a halve's a good result for both teams. I think it shows the strength of the Simpson Cup. It's unusual to see halves, though we haven't seen many this season. As you can tell, we haven't seen many this season. So I think it's a good result for both teams. Couple of big wins, though, for the Tea Tree Gully boys at the top of that order, which I really kept my eye on. The 6 and 5 with Sadira and the 6 and 5 with Ben as well. I think that's smashings, and that's a very interesting result.
Yeah, so well identified. The Crown Prince of Fairview Park returns to the team. Big 6 and 5 victory. And the Mongoose, Ben Hallam, cuts the heads off snakes off the opposition. A couple of big performances, and yeah, they're the sort of guys that I reckon are going to stand up in semi-finals. Geez, they've got some options, Tea Tree Gully. I think that they are just probably firing on about 2.5 of 4 cylinders at the moment. Bit of a surprise to see both the Summerfield boys go down, but I just reckon put them on the Vines in a semi-final. They're confirmed for the spot now. That means one of the Tier 1 clubs is going to miss out. Could be 2 if the Vines has a bit of luck this week. But I don't mind the way Tea Tree Gully is just developing. They've had that little bit of a mid-season lull. That's a performance that they'll take and get out of. They know they're confirmed for a semi-final, and I think they're a threat at the Vines. So, yeah, they're tracking very nicely. Got to say, the King retained his crown, Soph, with a win over Chris Austin. So Sam Earl finally gets back into the winners list after a couple of weeks off. Final match of the round, Royal Adelaide took on Kooyonga. This also finished in a half. So we had no halved contests for the entire first 5 weeks in the season. And this week we get 2 in one day. And both of them are fairly important in the overall scheme of things. Soph, what did you make of Royal Adelaide's half with their great rivals Cooey?
Yeah, again, I think this is a very interesting result. I think it's a good result for both teams. Both teams were missing players with the Junior Masters getting played and the Junior Interstate Series Kui were missing their Malachi, and Royal was missing their Billy White. So we had some newcomers into both teams.
Billy Cherry.
Billy Cherry.
Hasn't he become the
oh my gosh,
David Cherry? Only 14.
Very clever. Well, look, no, interesting result. 4 games going down 18 and either ending in a half or one way for either team. So it was a close contest. It was huge. I'm sure that rival was really, really strong between the two teams, though they did look like they had drinks at the end of the round, so it couldn't have been too bad. But look, interesting result. For me, I think this is a particularly good result for Royal Adelaide. I don't think they would have been everyone's favourites coming into this game, coming against Kui, who've won so many premierships in recent years, and Royal hasn't in many years. So I think this is a good result for the Royal team, and they should be proud of this one.
So a couple of things stand out to me. Alex Pacifico has taken down Joel Durnford, and he has once again been the player of the year for Royal Adelaide, and big chance to make team of the year for the second year running as well. He was at the bottom of the order, I reckon, in the team of the year last year, and he might be the best performed number one of the season, and that is saying something for a guy who was more of a Bonner Cuppa 2 or 3 years ago. So it's been an incredible year for him, and I know that he's a good mate of you and your partner Das as well. So I'm sure you'll be very pleased with that. It's going to be fascinating to see what Rod Phillips does with the team from here. Seth Timko on debut beats Jackson Cowles. My understanding is Jackson didn't have his best form on the day, but that's not Seth's fault. And to come in on debut, win 6-4 against a quality opponent, that's a fantastic effort. The other thing that's interesting for Royal Adelaide is Nathan Kent and Hudson Haynes have both played 3 matches each. And you know the rules, if you play 4, then you can't go back and play Bonner Cup. So what does Rod Phillips and therefore Ian Rice do? Do they look to bring someone else up because they've got some depth? They're going to get Billy White back. Do they keep Timko in, which gives them some flexibility with selection around a semi-final, or do they stick with Nathan Kent, who's been serviceable without being sensational? I just think that will be an interesting watch. For Kuyonga, my understanding is Heath Richards is carrying a bit of a minor back injury. He hasn't won since March 8. Tell me the last time in the middle of a season he's gone over a month without a win. That would be probably 12, 13 years for Heath, I would have thought. So Will Arnold gets him on the final hole. It's his first win of his year and probably the best win of his career. So congratulations to Will, and he's going to be really important for Royal Adelaide going down the stretch. And then Billy's chase of Frank Vukic was absolutely epic. I think he was 3 down after 8, eagled the par 5 ninth, and had to win the 18th to halve the match, which he did, was what changed the entire result of the contest. So gee, Billy Cawthorne, I tell you what, he is renowned for stealing someone's lunch, and he's done it again on the weekend.
Yeah, that's very much like Billy, isn't it?
I tell you what, so the stage is set perfectly now for what is going to be some amazing final round matches. Sanderson Cup and Simpson Cup. We're going to start to think about those towards the end of the week because it's going to be absolutely massive. There is going to be some big smiles and some genuine tears at the end of it because there is going to be someone out of yourself and Kuyonga that is going to miss the finals in the Sanderson Cup, and someone out of Glenelg, Kuyonga and Royal Adelaide is going to miss out of the Simpson Cup as well. So so much to play for, going to be tremendously exciting. You guys are off to Glenelg, I believe, and the men at Thaxted Park, is that right?
That is 100% correct.
Well, hey, thanks everyone for joining us. We really appreciate all the support. We're getting so many lovely comments around the place. My wife, Soph, was playing in an A3 match today, and Paul Thomas was caddying for my wife's opponent, and we spent half the time talking about the podcast and how so many people are engaging with it and listening to it. So we're really grateful that everyone's involved. That wraps up the review show. Our preview show we're going to record in a couple of days, and we'll drop that out on Friday morning. What a massive round that's going to be. So love your expertise and insight as always. We'll see you on Thursday.
Sounds great, Ben. See you then.
With the last putt sunk, that's a wrap on this golf edition of Hooked on Sport. Thanks for listening. Help us meet more golfers just like you by following us and leaving a review. We look forward to your company on the next golf edition of Hooked on Sport.